President Trump's tariffs hit tomorrow, making a whole slew of things Coloradans buy more expensive. A family contacts a crisis line to get help for their daughter and got what seemed like canned AI responses in return.
She might as well have just contacted Siri.
Someone at this building clearly loves firefighters, because why else would they be called there nearly 3 times a week last year? And our search for perspective at the end of the week takes us back to school, preschool.
It's Good News Friday!
That's tonight on Next.
So I'm not in charge of spending at my house, let alone your house. But if you've been thinking about buying something, maybe get after it this weekend before President Trump's tariffs fully kick in and a whole bunch of stuff gets more expensive. The Trump administration announced today that 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports will go into effect tomorrow, as will 10% tariffs on Chinese products. Economists say those cost increases will get passed along to American consumers, meaning that we'll all pay more for things like electronics, fruit and vegetables, cars, alcohol. The administration has hinted at potential exemptions for Canadian and Mexican oil, but has not announced whether those exemptions will be in place by tomorrow. Trump has said that the tariffs are retaliation for unfair trade deficits and punishment on Mexico and Canada for the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. A study by the nonpartisan Peterson Institute for International Economics predicts those tariffs will, quote, damage all economies involved, including the U.S. This is likely just the beginning. Trump says he's planning tariffs against EU countries as well, and on gas and oil imports, computer chips, steel, aluminum, and pharmaceutical drugs. UC Health is joining Denver Health in rolling back some care to avoid angering the Trump administration. Both hospital systems say they will stop providing gender-affirming care for patients under 19 years old. This is in response to an executive order the president signed this week threatening to pull federal funding from healthcare agencies that provide gender-affirming surgeries and hormone therapy for anyone under 19. On Tuesday, Denver Health said the hospital system cannot handle being cut off from federal funds. They get $89 million a year from the feds, not including Medicaid funding. UC Health says it previously only provided gender-affirming care for people 18 and older, so they'll follow the Trump administration's directive by raising the age for those treatments from 18 to 19. Try canceling your phone, internet, or TV service, and you likely end up in an automated phone menu or talking to a chat bot. That's simply how automation and AI are handling a lot of low-stakes, repetitive interactions. You would not expect an automated response from a crisis line. Our Marshall Zellinger has that.
Thank you. On a scale of 1 to 5, how upset are you?
When you're in a crisis and need help, answering survey questions seems less than helpful.
Hello, thank you so much for reaching out for support this evening.
Last Wednesday, Mandy, a mom, needed help.
We were in the middle of a very intense meltdown with one of my kids.
She texted the 988 crisis hotline.
I wanted them to provide me with an immediate solution that I could act on instead of just sitting there feeling helpless.
The texts she shared with us show why she felt helpless.
Have you tried taking her to a therapist or psychiatrist? Again, yes.
988 is a crisis line you can call or text. Last year, the state awarded the 988 contract to Solari, an Arizona-based company, after ending a contract with Rocky Mountain Crisis Partners in Colorado. At the time, Solari's CEO said they planned to hire back around 180 call takers in Colorado. Mandy's crisis text taker was clearly not local.
What state is Broomfield in, please?
28 minutes into texting, Mandy determined she would go to the ER at Children's. The person on the other end was searching the web for answers.
I am only finding some articles that give you tips. To be the one who is in crisis to provide resources to the crisis helper was very hard for me.
She might as well have just contacted Siri.
Blair Skinner is a family therapist who looked over the texts that Mandy shared.
When you dial 988 or you text 988 and you're being told this is a crisis hotline and this is a hotline where you can call and get help and support and resources for any kind of a mental health crisis, you're looking for somebody who has an expertise in mental health.
It actually stressed me out way more.
Can imagine why. The 988 Crisis Hotline Board in Colorado, Kyle, is aware of this issue. It was brought to their attention through the counseling community. But a formal complaint must be filed for the 988 board to investigate further, though they know about it. Solari, the Arizona-based company, just called back in the last 10 minutes. They said they do have call takers in a Denver call center, that the first texts are automated to then route you to a human.
I would be furious if I was a parent calling for help for a kid and I got AI bot garbage back at me. Do we have any idea how often this is happening?
No, so if anybody, like we've seen the change in the last year of how 988 is responded to, and 988 is relatively new still, but no, I don't know of any other, hey, I think I'm talking to AI or I'm talking to someone with a language barrier, because some of the text that she showed me, Mandy, it was hard to tell if there's a typo or if there was maybe copy-paste issues or just, I'm having trouble talking to you in the language that you're used to hearing from someone.
I mean, when you've got a kid in crisis and you're hearing like, I am looking at articles to see how I can help you.
Right.
Holy.
Or have you tried going to a therapist?
Like, come off. All right. Well, if people have heard about this happening, if it's happened to somebody that they know, email us next, 9news.com. All right, Marshall Zellinger, thank you. Colorado's Republican Party chairman has failed in his latest attempt to consolidate power for himself and his allies. Failed in somewhat hilarious fashion. So this is Dave Williams, the guy who called for the burning of pride flags and also burned party cash on his failed Republican primary for Congress. He's still trying to fend off attempts to replace him. In a chaotic Zoom meeting last night, Williams' critics derailed the party's discussion on new bylaws that would advance some of his more controversial priorities. Last night, the party's 400-person Central Committee was supposed to vote on sweeping rule changes that would make it harder to remove officers and consolidate power among a smaller group of party insiders. The party was also supposed to vote on a new rule keeping most Republican elected officials from voting on party matters. It's got to just be a coincidence that Colorado's entire Republican congressional delegation has had it with this dude. They've said that Williams has been a failure as head of their party. But those votes never happened last night. Instead, Chairman Williams spent an hour and a half fending off arguments from people like Congresswoman Lauren Boebert and Republican State Rep Ron Weinberg, who accused Chairman Williams of steamrolling the meeting and on Zoom literally muting his critics.
I keep getting muted. I'm getting muted on a multiple.
Parliamentary inquiries need to be responded to.
This is absolutely.
Ron.
I keep getting muted.
Ron, stop.
He is.
Stop.
Now I'm literally angry. So we can do this simply, and we can do this nicely, and we can do this like very plainly, simply. But for Pete's sakes, put the rules into place and follow them.
It's why they do it on Zoom. They do that in a room, people start throwing hands. After 90 minutes of that foolishness, Republican Party leaders voted to give up on the meeting altogether. Williams told our partners at Colorado Politics they're going to get everybody to vote at a later date. For 242 weeks now, you have proven the power of $5 giving, piling up your $5 donations to raise $14 million for Colorado's nonprofits. I hate to be greedy, but what are the chances of $6 or $7 this time? Because this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports the nonprofit Kids Pack in northern Colorado. For 15 years, they have fed families in the Thompson School Districts, Loveland, Berthoud, Johnstown. For $6 or $7 a bag, Kids Pack puts together 6 meals that kids can take home to their families on weekends. Hundreds of volunteers sort and organize and deliver these food bags to 36 schools, along with community partners like libraries and the Salvation Army. More than a third of the kids in that school district in northern Colorado need help to avoid hunger. The need is great, but Kids Pack is meeting it. They are relentlessly doing it week after week. It's actually not unlike what you have done here for the last 5 years. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. We'll send you that link to donate. And really, your monthly giving is now powered by the 4,000 of you who have signed up to simplify the process with a recurring monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. It's meant we've started recent microgiving campaigns with more than $30,000 per week. You can use that same QR code or text to get there.
For us, that's definitely our #1 building we go to quite a bit.
When you're a firefighter, no 2 days are the same, except for the crew in Denver that keeps going back to the same condo almost every day. A farewell to DU's Cowboy Chancellor, who brought that university back from the brink. And you know, you're never too young to be positive. We will get preschooled, on our favorite Friday question, next. You ever notice the people when the firefighters show up on the scene who take an extra long look out the window or the door or across their desk when the firefighters come into the office? Don't tell me you haven't seen it. I've watched it happen at 9 News. But usually that's a once in a blue moon thing. You know, the firefighters coming in hot, so to speak. Except at a condo building in Denver where the fire department responded every couple days last year. Somebody wants an eyeful. Spencer Soysher has the story.
There are a lot of great spots to walk and eat near 17th and Larimer. And dear God, for the sake of their ears, hopefully the people living at the Windsor condominiums start eating out.
We were there last shift. We went there twice last shift.
1777 Larimer. 1,777. Not that far off from the number of times firefighters have been called to that building in the last year.
They're not burning their food. They're just cooking like you and I do at home, and it just happens to trigger that alarm, just mainly because of placement in that building.
In 2023, the Denver Fire Department was called to the condo building 49 times. For some reason,
I don't know why.
That number in 2024 nearly tripled. 134 calls. Firefighters are sent there 2.7 times a week.
For us, that's definitely our number one building we go to quite a bit.
The detectors in nearly all 162 units were installed above the kitchen. This 3-star Google review says the place rocks. Love living here. Everything is amazing, except for the fire alarm.
Because the system doesn't differentiate between a smoke alarm and a heat alarm, we're getting an alarm regardless of what the cause is.
Jonathan Cole is the condo's GM. He says plans to fix the constant alarms have been in motion for a while, but the building was constructed in 1981, and rewiring a high-rise and then getting the plan approved by the fire department is taking time.
There's a good understanding that in the interim, there's not really anything that we're able to do to mitigate it.
In the meantime, people in the condo will stay alarmed. Hopefully they start eating out too.
I know their faces, I don't know their names. I should probably learn their names.
Denver Fire says they don't fine anybody when they're called, so the building managers don't have to pay for all these visits. The fire department is working with the building on figuring out how to expedite the fix as efficiently and as quickly as possible.
Great story. I don't know. How did you find out about this? You're like going through spreadsheets of fire calls? What'd you do?
We did put in a records request for this, but we really found it because we were on a story with them like a week and a half ago, and we had that super cold spell, and we were going around on their calls. Of course, first one we show up to, 1777 Larimer. And they're like, yeah, this is another story. We'll explain.
That is fascinating. Spencer Soysher, thank you.
No problem.
A couple of different weather stories will follow for you this weekend. We have some wind on the way to the Front Range Mountains and foothills, but snow coming into the high country, and it'll bring the threat for avalanches back to the central and northern mountains. We're talking over the course of the next 36 hours, we could see a foot or more. Places like Rocky Mountain National Park up to the higher peaks around Steamboat Springs. And Denver is just going to be breezy at times. Some of the higher wind in the foothills spilling out across the city from time to time. Lows tonight, 20s and 30s, eastern plains and western slope. Teens in the high country. We're going to get to those 50s and 60s tomorrow with 40s in the high country. And if you missed out on the weather today, don't worry. We have a few more days of 60s to near 70 before a cool down late next week.
Dan Ritchie, who helped to shape the Denver of today, particularly the University of Denver, has passed away at the age of 93. He was a media CEO, a philanthropist, a rancher. He was most famously DU's cowboy chancellor. The university said today that DU has lost its greatest friend and champion. He was key to the growth of that school. He took over as chancellor in 1989. He helped to lead the university out of insolvency and put his own money on the line, selling off some of his ranches and donating $50 million to the school. After nearly 2 decades as chancellor, he served on the university's board of trustees, as well as serving on the boards of the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, the Denver Art Museum Foundation, and the private charitable foundation, the Daniels Fund.
I hope people say, there goes a great man, and a great man I want to be like, because he was a model of what I hope all of us learn to be, which is give back to the people and the communities you care about, do it with excellence, and never stop.
There will be no forgetting Dan Ritchie. For starters, his family's name is all over town. It's on the athletic center on the DU campus. He helped to create the engineering school, named it after his father. He created a scholarship fund for music in honor of his late mother. DU's hockey team says they will wear a patch in his memory for the rest of the season.
We're making Valentines to spread around the community with love and light.
Even if the adults have had a stressful week, you can always count on the kids to provide some good life perspective. So we'll pitch them our favorite Friday question. What's your good news? Next. Hey, and a reminder, you can catch this program streaming each night, 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus. And if you like the show but can't stand to look at me, we're now a podcast. From the airline tragedy to the political chaos, this week has been a lot. Time for some perspective from a younger generation. You know, every Friday we set aside the headlines of the day to ask Coloradans what is good in their lives. Tonight, let's go to preschool.
Say, it's Good News Friday. Ready? One. Oh, wait till I say it. 1, 2, 3. It's Good News Friday.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Who's there?
Erupting cow. Moo.
Interrupting cow. Moo. You think he wears a swimsuit in there?
No!
You don't think he has a swimsuit on?
No, this is the swimsuit. It's my birthday.
Being around little ones is so refreshing. I find so much joy in my career every day to be surrounded by such a powerful community and to be in a space where I get to see the world through a beginner's mind every day.
My good news is my birthday.
Hello.
I like jumping around and playing monsters.
What's going on with you this weekend?
I'm going sledding.
You're going sledding?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of good news, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you like to talk? Is there something else you want to say?
And we're going to share and about I love you and we love each other.
So sweet. That's the work of our photojournalist and dad, Tom Cole. Thank you, Marilyn. Your feedback to round out the week. What do we have? Woo, that's next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a native getting a ride around town. So a viewer named Rob snapped this photo between Longmont and Lyons for us, and you gotta think, I mean, some perspective, millions of years ago, dinosaurs roamed all over Colorado, and now they just hitch a ride wherever they want to go. That looks to me like one of those Sinclair gas station dinosaurs that my girls always get excited about when we pass. If you see something that looks like Colorado to you, email it to us, next@9news.com, or text next 303-871-1491. Loanne in Estes Park is gearing up for the Trump tariffs. She sends in feedback saying, we doubled our purchase of maple syrup. Just in case, you always have Vermont, Loanne. Lauren, holy smokes, Marshall looks so nice tonight in that gorgeous suit. He better not be interviewing for another job. Listen, dude's one of the best journalists I've ever met. He can work anywhere he wants. We're fortunate that it's here. Matt says, are you moonlighting as a lounge singer after next? You don't like this?